Seneca said, each moment that passes belongs to death. Marcus Aurelius counseled objective judgment now at this very moment, meaning to look for what's possible, and unselfish action. I'm realizing with Brad's death that I want to be better, to take charge of what I do with this brief allotment of existence that he didn't waste any time in. Seneca, in reflecting on his own advancing years, said, "A day has its beginning and ending, its sunrise and sunset."
Thank you, Lord.
When our father died, way too many years ago, I felt like I needed to say a lot about what he had been, because he had dementia. People didn't remember him the way he had been. But y'all all know Brad. He never stopped being Brad. I miss my big brother. He's a good man. He had a good life. He worked hard at it. There's really not anything I need to tell you. I miss him. I know y'all do too.
Tom.
Andrew Gulliford asked me to read this. Andrew Gulliford is my father's cousin, but was one of my father's best friends growing up, and he couldn't be here, but he wrote this yesterday on the 4th. It's titled "Remembering Cousin Brad." He says, what can I say about Brad? He was always outdoors, curious, wanting to fish, to float, to see new things. As a child, he wandered across burning ashes once, burning tree ashes in our backyard in Lake Elmo, Minnesota, to just learn that it would hurt his feet. He had a curiosity. At Hillcrest, a former country club near Lamar, Colorado, which we owned, he climbed trees and he swam in irrigation ditches, and he helped me drive a Sears garden tractor as part of a hunting expedition to find and shoot jackrabbits. As we got older, we used to use a 1953 Ford F-150 pickup. And Brad took a magnificent shot with a .22 rifle and nailed a rabbit at close to 90 yards. And I still don't know how he did that. But he found a young bunny that was obviously the pup of the older bunny, and while Brad stayed at Lamar, he had the bunny, and then he took a Greyhound bus back to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and he took the bunny with him because he felt like it was his responsibility in a paper bag, and he took it on the Greyhound bus, and the bus driver said, "What do you got in the bag there, sir?" And Brad replied, "Lunch." Maybe for a coyote or something. But that Colorado bunny made its way back to Louisiana and found new friends. And, as a teenager, we decided to do something really, really daring and go canoeing in a homemade canoe that no less Brad had made, but not had checked for leaks, down the Mississippi River towards New Orleans. And Margie left us off on a river landing. And I remember a half-dozen old black men sitting there and fishing and shaking their heads at us as we slipped off into the river in the main channel with huge international oil tankers pounding up and down, and we tried to stay out of their way. Brad wanted to bring a transistor radio, and that was the thing in the day, I guess. But I said absolutely not. We need to hear the sound of the water, and we did. I'm not sure how many nights we were out. A couple, I guess. One afternoon, we stripped down, and we were holding in the opposite ends of the canoe by the painters, and we were just rolling around. And we were naked, and we were near the bank when Brad spied a pretty girl up near some trees, and he wanted to get closer, so we kind of started to move in that direction. And we were kicking with our feet and pulling the canoe with ropes when my eye caught the movement just above her. And deep in the shadows was a sinister, unshaven male with a shotgun in his hands, straight out of the movie Deliverance, and we were naked. And I yelled at Brad, and I said, we got to get back to the main channel. And he kept saying, I want to go talk to that girl. And I said, no, you don't understand. And we kept floating on. Memories. And that night we camped on a sandbar, and I was dead asleep the next morning. And Brad's usual morning method of starting a fire was to pour a little gasoline. And yes, we had a little outboard motor on the canoe that we didn't use very often. We had it, so he'd pour a little gasoline on the deadhead or the beach logs to start a fire and make coffee, get some coals going, and he did that. And I was sleeping that morning when up the fog was a large U.S. Army Corps of Engineers boat heading upstream, and the crew thought that the signal fire, he thought it was a signal fire on the beach. They thought it was and so I woke up to the sound of God. The captain on the bridge used his big megaphone, and he asked, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" And having woken straight up from a sound sleep on the beach, I just assumed that it was God checking in on me. I was trying to figure out what was going on, and I opened the tent, and I saw Brad dancing a little jig around the fire to signal the Army Corps of Engineers boat that they were okay. Which is like the best way to wake up. The captain turned off the lights. The ship moved forward in the fog, and by then I was certainly wide awake, and I can't remember what we had for breakfast, but I'll never forget that wake up call. I must have been down in Baton Rouge when Margie and Jim took us out on the river. On a sandbar, I photographed the handsome Brad and the beautiful Colleen in a magnificent pose that might have been their maybe first or second date. And the photo still exists, and so do the memories of the years together on sandbars and beaches and mountain passes and special places. I was the best man at Brad and Colleen's wedding, and those wedding photos are priceless. It looks like Brad was auditioning for like some kind of rock band, maybe the Monkees. He had this mop of hair, and he looked a little strange. But Colleen married him anyway, and we were glad of it. Where would Calvin and Lindsay be if she hadn't said I do? I remember Brad's epic motorcycle journey across country, seeing relatives and stopping at our house in Colorado Springs, where he would clean the bugs off of his bike and out of his teeth. And later, when we moved to the mountains near Silt, Colorado, both Brad and Colleen would come and visit to ski and play in the snow. And there was an old, warm, morning wood coal stove in the clubhouse, kind of guest house, where they stayed, and they'd always get it way too warm. In the morning, I'd see ski boots propped open the door to let the heat out. We moved to New Mexico, and the Belks came to visit, and I remember exploring the Gila National Forest and finding a tight little slot canyon that we named the Dream Canyon. In my 1971 Chevy stepside pickup with the granny gear, but no four-wheel drive. It was the last year that Chevy made a wooden pickup bed. Andy's got words. He's a talker. We drove to the outer loop from the Members Valley and up to the old mining town of Mogollon, and we photographed the mining equipment in the run-down boarding houses, and I have photos of Brad there. I was leaving to take a new job in Tennessee, and we promised each other to come back and camp and hike in the Gila again. but we never made it. We did have fun times up in the Flat Top Mountains in the White River National Forest above Glenwood Springs, Colorado. It was years ago, but it was actually this 4th of July weekend. We loaded the kids up into the Big Red, which was a crew cab pickup that Jim Belk had bought, and we drove it high up into the mountains to find snowfields so that the cousins could pelt each other with snowballs on the 4th. And Big Red had a hitch on both the front and the back, and on our way out, a lonesome little family van was broken down on the super rutted forest road in front of us. The driver had no idea what he was getting himself into, and Brad had to pull that van out of the way with his front hitch. And then I remember walking past the disabled van and having the owner's wife say, how bad is it? And I could see the tie rod ends loose and dragging in the mud and the snow, and perhaps 60 miles to go back to asphalt, any kind of repair. And I didn't really have the heart to answer her and tell her how stupid her husband was. But we got the kids piled into the back of Big Red, and we drove to Silt and to roast hot dogs and kicked around a soccer ball or two.
God bless Big Red.
God bless Big Red. Big Blue also. And Big Red too. Brad and I had our separate careers. He became a Texan, and I finally made it back to Colorado in the San Juan Mountains. And Brad wisely took early retirement and came to visit us in Durango and then to Bluff, Utah, where when we built our house in Canyon Country. And I remember the first time that Brad and Colleen showed up in our Durango neighborhood with that gleaming Airstream trailer. He backed it in perfectly beside our garage, and when they got out with lawn chairs and a big rug and a little table, I was wondering how many months they'd be staying, but it was only a few days. In Bluff, we built a house, and with Brad's direction, I added a little RV pad with a little sewer pump and water and electric, and had it all graded and flattened on the east side of the house for the afternoon shade in the desert. I thought Brad would be satisfied, but oh no, he wanted Wi-Fi too. I'm sorry that he didn't live long enough to come back. We'll have the internet in about 2 weeks. Little town only has about 200 people in it, Bluff, Utah, so it takes a little while to get things done. Near the house, there's a nice stretch of the San Juan River where we can ducky and canoe, and we did it with Colleen and my wife in the ducky. Brad had his lightweight canoe. It was a great morning and early afternoon with storm clouds rising in the west and a cooler monsoon wind flowing instead of the 95-degree heat. Brad left this time, on the water, always. So my last memories of my cousin are good ones, of course. Hiking behind our Utah house to a small 800-year-old ancestral Puebloan granary, seeing 5,000-year-old rock art down by the San Juan River. Our last great hike was down Butler Wash. And we had a huge snow that year with lots of runoff, so we couldn't quite make it to the magnificent rock art panels because the river backed up to the wash. But we found another ancient site to visit, and we walked up to it. And we rested in the shade while my new pup chased lizards and almost fell off a cliff. Brad talked about all of you, his family and his friends. We leaned our backs on the narrow ledge with petroglyphs on the side of us, an ancient habitation site in front, and the warm sun was not yet hot. He was glad that he walked into that canyon, but he was also very glad when he made it back up to the truck. I wanted to do so much more with him. We all did. We'll not forget him. He was a good man, a loving husband, a great dad, and a master fixer of all things broken. And we'll miss him. Wherever he is, he's probably solo canoeing on a heavenly river right now, or getting ready to go. And he'll keep his paddle in the water and move straight downstream. He always did. That was beautiful. Thank you, Uncle Andy.
You want to wash your hands?
Okay, let's see.
Okay, don't do that.
I got it. Dad taught me a lot of things. Thanks, Rudy. He was really good at everything. At being a father, there was none of my memory. There was no shortcomings. I didn't feel like there was anything that was missing. He was hyper intellectual. We have enthusiasms and things in our life that we never would have otherwise. Boat motors to poetry. He was an enthusiastic person. He loved life. He loved life so much. It was really the thing that drove him was the love that he received from others, the energy to make things happen, and the happiness that was derived from that. It was really, it was a good childhood. One of the night we got back from the hospital, like the first time after we learned the diagnosis, and it was this whole thing, and there was all these doctors, and we finally got back to the house, and all the lights were turned off, and everyone was quiet, and it was just Dad and I sitting on the couch, and we were watching some terrible show. We love terrible shows. And then we were quiet for a long time, and then he said it real bluntly, and he said, "Man, I have cancer." And I watched this thing roll over his face that I'd never really seen before. He was angry, and I'd never really seen that, which is a good thing. But he was angry. He said, "I have cancer." And then I think it's the last thing that he kind of taught me. There's a foundation of things that can make you happy. And my father, like I was saying, he found this foundation of happiness that was life, and it was love, and it was making other people feel those things also. And I'd never seen him angry before, because there was never an opportunity. His happiness was never at risk, because all the things, a crash car or boat motor and start or something, whatever, were all nothing, because all that matters was life and love and the love of those around you. And so it was all nothing. Little things were nothing, because he had this foundation. And I finally saw him that night, and he was actually angry because it affected his life, the thing. This is kind of a weird thing to say, because everybody goes through it differently, and there's no wrong ways to do it. But I think I believe what his will would be. Because he thrived, because the buoyancy of his life was inflated with the love of others. I think he would like it to be mourned over. He would like to feel that love. And then I believe that it is his will that after an amount of time we stop mourning him, which is a hard thing. Everybody does it differently. And I think that he was angry for the first time because his life was taken away. And I think that if he could find out that cancer didn't only take his life away, but took the life of others away with it, if you fall susceptible, and I'm very much talking to myself here, that would crush him. So I think it would be his will to mourn him, and then to stop mourning him, and to be inspired by him. I think I think he will be like a rooster to me. I think in every way, shape, and form, I think he will be the thing that pulls me out of bed. And if he's the thing that keeps you in bed, no respect. No respect to him. Get out of bed, and you keep going, and that's how you honor him. You stay strong, keep going, and celebrate. Celebrate his life. Okay.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
So I met this guy, and I needed an apartment, and his mom knew this place that was about 5 minutes from her house, right? And I knew I was going to marry this guy, and so this is the in-laws, right? So I was going to move 5 minutes away from the in-laws. Now, to a lot of people, that's a scary thing. And I'm not going to lie, at first I was a little afraid. But I didn't realize the people that I was moving 5 minutes away from. Earlier, he was referred to as a master fixer of all things. I'm one of those things that he fixed. When I met him, I was smoking cigarettes like nonstop. I was drinking, blacking out all the time. I was sloppy and messy, and I had no idea where my life was going. And then I started talking to him. He's unspeakably inspiring. He was in better shape than I'm in now, and I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my life, and I went to state and cross country. So let that say something. He all through chemo, bicycling, boating. Last week, wasn't he out on the boat with us? Hanging out the boat landing, if anybody knew Brad, just like Lindsay said, he would not want you to keep grieving. He would want you to live for him. So when I picture him, I picture that big old open mouth smile. And I hope that y'all can all get closer to each other and move on and be happy together. Thank you. I also, really quick, he was a huge supporter through a transition in my life, and several times shared with me his mother's spiritual odyssey. And it's very long, but it meant a lot to him. So I'm just going to read the last page. So here it starts, we settle on some rules for ourselves. Here are my 10 commandments. Enjoy people, nature, situations. Life is short and to be enjoyed. 2, be honest in word and deed. My integrity is the core of me. 3, accept responsibility for my actions, feelings, and survival. 4, be kind, slow, considerate, so that others know I value them whenever possible. 5, don't hurt anyone. Never lower anyone else's self-esteem. 6, make amends for inadvertent errors or stupid actions at once. 7, respect others and their way of doing things. 8, imagine how the other person feels. 9, contribute what I can to improve a situation, to stand up for freedom and fairness. 10, accept the ups and downs of life, loving the ups and making the best of the downs. 11, keep fit because life needs energy. My commandments bring to me my salvation. My salvation is probably satisfaction in the place I'm in. Though I still gain refinement, essentially I feel saved now. Accepting life as finite increases its value to me and puts things into better perspective and makes me recognize the idleness of tears. And then he loved this quote. When I consider life in its few years, a wisp of fog between us and the sun, a call to battle, and the battle done, I wonder at the idleness of tears. Family love, ties between people, work well done gives my life meaning. Laughter and delightful activities, violently rocking boat, picking berries and singing, give it zest. When I die, though it won't be chiseled in stone, my body is going to science. I'd like this epitaph. She tried to live fully and honestly, to provide a shelter for her husband, to provide a place to be a person of dependability for her children, and to ease another's burden. And she enjoyed the trip. And I gotta say, he did exactly the same thing.
Thank you, baby. Try and keep this down. I don't really know what to say other than what has been said. He was my hero. He taught me everything I possibly could know to learn from. And he instilled that in me to make sure I passed it on to others. He take care of y'all, take care of everybody. He just wanted to live. That's one of the things he told me. He's pissed about this. But he didn't want us to not live because of it. I love him, man. He really was my hero. On so many levels, there's so much stuff. I have family to lean on though. I have friends. He made sure that I knew that, made sure we all knew that, reminded me to make sure we all have that. He's all here, guys. He's with us. He taught us how to have fun with each other. He taught us how to play and do things. I'm going to make sure it's my point to continue that. Camp Belk, I'd like to keep going, if possible. We can work on that. Everything else, we as a family unit, we're everything with him, and we're still everything without him, but he's still with us. He would want us to share what he taught us with everyone else as well. He loved everybody here. I loved him back.
Brad Belk, my brother-in-law and my friend. He was a good man. He was very much in love with my sister, and she was very, very much in love with him. I know because I watched as they lovingly put up with and supported each other for years and years. I consider Brad a little old school. He believed in loving and supporting his family. He believed in his country, and equally as important, he believed in living a day at a time. Of course, fishing and biking and canoeing and hiking and being outdoors was all on his agenda. Many years ago, I met Brad briefly once before he invited my brother Mark and I for a drink. And we sat down and we started talking, and the reason for this drink was that he wanted to ask my brother and I permission to marry my sister. Now, obviously, my brother and I gave him a hard time. Obviously, that had to happen. But in the end, Mark and I were proud to have Brad in our family. From that day forward, I respected him, even if he was a coon ass. Sorry about that, y'all. I discovered this about Brad. Oh, wait a minute. Now, obviously, he believed in loving. That's why I did that one. I discovered Brad and how he loved his sister and everything when Brad and I went on a fishing trip together. Now, you guys know that Brad and I cross swords every once in a while. But one of the things that I most respected about Brad was that we could always agree to disagree. And that was Brad. He had this innate ability to listen to us and listen to a point that he disagreed with, but then he'd make his point and we would agree to disagree. And I discovered this about Brad on a fishing trip when we went out, and I caught more fish than Brad, and we disagreed on that. But Brad was the lady fish killer, and I caught more edible fish, so we agreed to disagree on that one. On that fishing trip, I rediscovered my friend. Now then, we had just a second, y'all, I'm kind of screwed up here. Dorothy and I had a place on the coast, on Rockport, and we'd go fishing, oh gosh, every weekend for about 5 years. And we always enjoyed having Brad and Colleen to the coast. There were the Thanksgivings, Christmases, special days, and one of the coolest parts.
A lot of holidays.
A lot of holidays. The meals that you and Dorothy would put together, and more importantly, you guys dominated the pool table. Okay? One Saturday morning, and I think it might have been Memorial Day. Now, how can I say this? We got into them. And I watched Brad smile as Colleen drug in her third big honkin' red. All right. I think that might have been the day that Colleen got into fishing, got hooked into fishing. That's where it was. The other day, I read Cabot's post on Facebook, and I don't believe anyone could say it any better. So again, with your permission, Kevin, I'd like to do this. My daddy would not want anybody to be sad over his loss. He would want us all to go play, live, and adventure as much as possible. He would want a celebration to the life he lived and to the one he left behind for all to enjoy. Lastly, a man should take care of his woman, and a woman should take care of her man. No one is above the other. Colleen and Brad were a team, and Brad will be missed.
Tell there, Bobby.
I first came up on the hill about 13 years ago. I drove in here one night. It was soup night. And at that time, Joy would make soup for Brad, Colleen, and some of the family and some of the people on the hill, and Colleen would do the bread. And so I first met Brad that night, just like part of the family. And then, a year or so, or months later, whenever I moved up on the hill, and really began to know more about Brad and learn what a fixer-upper he was. It's hard to go in any part of our house without looking at something that maybe he wired. He did all the lights in our garage. He did all the lights in the shop. Just a month or so ago, he rewired the lights in the kitchen. And over the years, we've spent lots of time with Colleen and Brad. We backpacked through Mexico one time. We paddled in the Bay of Fundy out of Maine. We paddled in the Gulf of Mexico. We paddled in the Niles River in Michigan. We paddled in the Erie Canal. And about maybe 15 or 20 Texas rivers and lakes when we were working on a book. And the one thing about Brad is, you can always say, is he always did his part and more. I don't think that most people knew it, but he paid the taxes on this boat ramp and park down here for about 30 years on his own. And the whole neighborhood uses it. That's just one example. But I did get mad at him one time. Joy made ice cream one time. Brad really loved ice cream, as you all know. So we had ice cream with them, and we went somewhere and came back, and I went in to get ice cream, and it was all gone. Brad came up, went in the house, ate all the ice cream, and went home.
That's about right.
I never really could repay him for all the things he did for me. The best I could do was maybe buy him a good bottle of scotch. I don't think I really ever repaid him fully, but after a few drinks, he probably wouldn't know the difference anyway. And I think we all know that he just won't be the same without him up here. I'm not sure who will take up the slack. Nobody can replace him. And I know I'm looking around and seeing all these faces, and I can't see all the smiles because of the mask, but I know everyone feels the same way about Brad. It's going to be hard to live without him, but I'm sure he wants to.
Thank you, Bobby.
Sunset. Is it sunset?
Oh, shit. No, we got 20 minutes.
Yeah. We gotta take that down. And,
I'm gonna read because I don't think I can talk. Brad was easy to love. His joy was palpable. It was his rule to always have fun. Brad wasn't religious. He probably wouldn't even say he was spiritual, but he and Colleen were the spiritual center of our neighborhood family. Created and kept up the celebrations and traditions that knitted us together. We gathered for years on their deck boat and then for years more on this deck. He was the heartbeat of it all. Brad and Colleen included Ben in their family activities for years. Kevin and Lindsay were his brothers. Margie was his grandmother. Brad gave my son as well as his boys. I'm sorry. Brad gave my son as well as his boys a knowledge and love of the outdoors and of the rivers and lakes he himself loved. Thanks to you reading Andy's stories of when they were young, because it reminded me of you. He taught them the skills men need to be self-reliant. These lucky boys roamed and practically owned the hills in this lake because of Brad. They learned self-reliance and he gave them opportunity. They were allowed to go boating in a skiff with Kevin in charge, starting when he was about 10.
8.
Brad taught
8.
me to let go and allow them that freedom. I could never have given them these opportunities, and I'm forever grateful. My last conversation with Brad was by text. It was about the current election. Over the years, we had consulted about some races. He texted me about the current runoff ballot we have right now. Quote, will you please break all the rules and tell me how to vote? A copy of your filled out ballot will be fine. The morphine is mending. And then he added a little note. 2, the Google reader being forced to read my emails. There is no morphine around here, and we are not breaking any voting rules. It didn't happen. I loved this man while he was here. We were lucky to be here with him, and he'll always live in my heart. Thank you, Brad, for all you shared. Live for him and vote for him.
Thank you, Betsy.
Well, this is very new to me. I've never talked in front of a group.
So I think it's going to be short, but I want to say that Colleen and Brad were the most impressive couple I have ever met. And Brad used to come over and knock on the door at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning and say, "What are you doing asleep?" Say, "Come on, we're going." And there were so many other things I think that have been said. And Colleen, I love the relationship you have with your husband. I love what you do with him.
Well, this looks kind of foreboding, but she taught Sunday school and she had everybody pick out favorite quotes. So I dusted the book off the shelf today and tried to think of the best description and short and sweet that I could think of Brad. And I told Amy I thought he was like an adult master, scoutmaster, co-ed, any age. And I was just so impressed with his fight with cancer and how he always tried to keep a positive outlook to the very end. And I remember one particular time he was really struggling with pain and he couldn't get out and just walk in the street, and Joy posted it. He felt grateful for what he had had. His blog said it all, life is good, and like Lindsay brought up, you know. And he just wanted to be able to get up again and go out and walk down the street and visit. So he and I think it was Joy, I think you were with him just 2 weeks ago. Y'all walked down to the house. After he'd been in the hospital 7 days, I heard this knock on the door the next day. And it's Brad. I thought, oh my God, look who's here. And he was here with his oxygen tank, Joy, and we're sitting out, and we had all this company had come. And he said, I said something about the company. He said, yeah, I don't know why they're all here. He said, none of them are in the will. so keep us laughing today. And I found this one quote by Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi prison camps. And it was kind of the one that I picked to sum up. The last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And I think he really did that. And I feel like it was said, maybe he wasn't particularly religious, but religious is just sort of religiosity. I feel like he was a spiritual person. And as a well-spent day brings happy sleep, so life well used brings happy death. Death is a low chemical trick played on everybody except sequoia trees. And one last one. I do think, like Kevin said, he's here in spirit. Sorry. Anyway, basically it says that at any given time that we breathe, all the molecules are out here that everybody that's ever lived, that through our life at one particular point will be breathing those same molecules, whether it's Moses or Jesus or Brad or whoever. So energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So you've got to keep it going.
Oh, thank you, Lee.
Belk, a genuine friend. You will not be forgotten. Last Monday, Rudy and I put our beloved 14-year-old mini Aussie down. We were still grieving Sydney's loss Tuesday morning when I received the text from Joy that Brad had passed Monday evening. While we were expecting that news would be coming, you're never prepared for the reality of finality. We'd never see Brad or Sydney again. Both Rudy and I were numb with grief that's hard to process. Like all of you, we shared many wonderful times with Brad and Colleen. 3 months after we moved to Austin in 1996, the Belk and Chavez family caravanned to the interior of Mexico. We were driving with our 3 boys in an old funky truck and camper, and they were traveling with Kevin and Lindsay in the infamous Big Red. There were many highlights on that trip. With no cell phone service, we communicated with Brad on walkie-talkies. At various checkpoints, our 2 vehicles were stopped by federales. None of us understood what they were saying to Rudy in Spanish, but Brad kept saying he had total trust in Rudy, who managed to convince them we were harmless turistas americanos on spring break. One night we stayed in a town called Dolores Hidalgo, where the rooms were $25 a piece, and where 9 of us ate a feast of roasted chickens, fresh tortillas, rice, and beans for under $20, including beers for the adults and apple sodas for the kids. Brad graciously picked up the bill and did some mental calculations. "This is my kind of place," he said. "We could retire right now and live here for under $15,000 a year." Brad was a generous friend, and I'll always ever be grateful to him for being there for my husband during a very difficult time. He was there for him. For the past 3 years, Brad and I were bonded by our membership in the club that no one wants to belong to. While my cancer was not comparable to what Brad was dealing with, he always made a point to ask me how I was doing and took a sincere interest in the trials and tribulations I shared with him. A few weeks ago, I received the first cancer-free report I'd had in 3 years. Knowing Brad's prognosis, I debated whether I should include him and Colleen in my email to friends and family about my extraordinary news. I decided to go ahead and include them, and sure enough, the first thing the next morning, Brad called me on the phone to congratulate me. It was the last time I will ever talk to Brad. He brought me to tears. Brad and Colleen, we don't always see you often, but when we see you, it's always the same. You boys are just so cute. I remember you like this, and you were brats on the trip. My son Matt was worse, I know. You'll always, all of you, have a place in Rudy and my heart.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Laura.
Love you.
Everyone here is family. Hello.
Hey, Ben.
Hello, Ben.
Wonderful to be here, and I'm glad I got to wait a moment because so many of y'all told wonderful stories, and they were all true. I'll use many of your words because they rang true to me, both of you guys. But I've always felt like I was one of the sons, and I felt that I was your brother and your son. Every one of you is my relative in a long way, and almost exclusively through Brad. He was probably one of the best men I've ever known. He set me on a path of righteousness from the very beginning. Like my mother said, he took me into the house and into the home and into the heart. He took care of me when my dad left, as if I was his own son. And I can't thank him enough for that. I can't thank you all enough. for being part of my family and for having me as part of this. And I love everyone here. I'm so sorry that this has to come, but I know only the best will come in the future, and that, like everyone has said, you know, we will continue living with a new purpose now, and that each one of us feels encouraged and blessed to be part of his life, because he blessed us that way, and he took us on. And he's given me more inspiration than any person in my life, aside from you, Mother. I love you all. Thank you very much for hearing what I have to say.
Thank you, Ben.
I gotta take that shade shelter thing down.
You know, we want to ring the bell. And not till after Amy speaks.
I don't think I could do it unless I wrote it down. I found this poem today, and it's very fitting of Brad. It's Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Invictus means unconquerable or undefeated in Latin. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud under the bludgeonings of chance. My head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. This poem is about courage in the face of death and holding on to one's own dignity despite the indignities that life places before us. I think of Brad as a brave leader and an extra father figure I was very fortunate to have. I'm endlessly grateful that he included me on so many of his adventures. I think it took all of us to keep him busy. And it is difficult to imagine the world without his zest for adventure and his aggressive dedication to have a good time. My mom very aptly called him the mayor. I think he brought us all together, and I am very grateful to have known him.
Thank you, Amy.
I think I'm going to tell a story Betsy encouraged me to. This is totally impromptu, but something odd has happened. And I think several people have said that Brad is still with us. And Colleen and I firmly believe.
He's going to pop up everywhere.
That's right. Well, this is proof.
Hi, Daddy.
I get a newsletter from Outside Magazine. As if y'all know, it's just a magazine about hiking, camping, swimming, training, health, everything. And I get a weekly newsletter. Several weeks ago, I signed up for a 10-day daily newsletter of encouragement on exercising, getting outside, just a little 10-day thing that will come to my inbox. So, July 1st, I open my inbox and it says, the title is Brad Outside. The article is written by a guy named Brad for Outside Magazine. So each morning I have opened my inbox to an encouragement to get outside and see the world and exercise. Take care of yourself, and it's from Brad Outside. That's all the proof I need.
There you go.
And so, a lot of people who could not be here with us have emailed me and asked me to read things, and a lot of this the same thing, how Brad is going to be here with them and living on in all of our lives. So the first one is from the Wimmer family. Brad's always been an anchor in the best sense of the word community, the neighborhood, and friends and family. It's always hard to lose an anchor, to acknowledge it. To honor that, we all have to shoulder a bit of the weight. To honor Brad, we remember this as we go forward in our own way to support each other, our neighborhood, our community, our friends and family. He is appreciated, admired, and respected. Thank you, Brad. With love, the Rimmer family. This is from Lucy and Wendy. One of our favorite memories from growing up on the hill is when we were working outside and Brad and you and Colleen told us to stop working and come out and get on the boat with y'all. Brad has always been a caring and positive force in our lives, from holiday celebrations to giving us rides home from the bus stop. Even as little kids, he always made us feel like our contribution to the neighborhood was just as important as the adults. He made everyone on the hill feel warm and safe and loved. This is from Jency. It is my fortune to have ever been invited to Joy and Bob's to be a part of a few of y'all's special neighborhood traditions. This is where I learned of your magical neighborhood, met many of the wonderful families, and heard many of their stories. It is where I am honored to have met you, your family, and all. I feel pride to call you my friend, Brad. I am glad I could tell you that. But you were taken far too early. You live on in many, many hearts who are hurting now, including mine. Your influence inspires me to try harder, to stay positive whatever is thrown at me, to keep moving, to slow down on the water and go fishing, and to live this life without fear. Now you are free. I celebrate your amazing life and I miss you. Jensen. This is from Sue Mason, Sue and Bill Mason. Brad was one of a kind. Brad was truly multidimensional. What do I mean by multidimensional? Well, we've all experienced the fun of doing things with Brad. He was without a doubt one of the funniest guys I've ever known. I have many fond memories, such as biking in Colorado, ending the ride with beer and burgers at the riverside, canoeing on Lake Austin, stopping for wine and pizza at the Grove, walking down the Champs-Élysées in Paris. I butchered that name, I'm sorry. To name just a few, and there are many more. But there was more to Brad than just having fun. He was knowledgeable and was also a terrific conversationalist. I think about the many times I've spent time with Brad on the Belk's back deck discussing a whole range of issues, from politics to our kids. Most of the time we agreed, sometimes we did see things differently, and when we did, oh my gosh, how I envied the way Brad could articulate his argument in such an effective way. And I usually lost. Brad truly had an amazing command of so many disciplines and could discuss most areas with the highest level of detail. I can't tell you how much I will miss those stimulating discussions. And to top it off, Brad was a caring person. You only had to observe his relationship with Colleen and his boys to know what love he had for his family. Brad and Colleen's love for each other was truly inspirational. But this caring extended well beyond his family. He was a loyal friend. And speaking for all the Masons, Brad treated all of us as part of the greater Belk family. And that's what I mean when I characterize Brad as being multi-dimensional. Now I can't end this without paying tribute to Colleen, Brad's true partner and supporter, especially during this extremely difficult period. Colleen, my hat's off to you. So, dear friend, as I finish writing my final goodbye with tears streaming down my cheeks, I want to end with a passage written by John Denver, which has given me comfort, and hopefully it will give comfort to each of you. And it's what Colleen said. Death is not an ending, but a symbol of movement along the path upon which we are all traveling. As it may be painful to lose contact with the physical aspects of the one we love, we have been and always will be a part of each other. Brad, you are sorely missed. This is from Leslie Stevens. Brad Belk has been and always will be a hero to me. His enthusiasm for life, loved ones, and friends never wavered, and he inspired many myself included, to be the best possible version of themselves that they could be. And he did this by example, not just words. It's very hard to put into simple words just exactly how much Brad meant to me, but I'll try. You see, for many, many years, my mom, my siblings, and I would celebrate our mother over a weekend that we would call Mother's Day. Colleen and Brad, who also loved our mother, would join us in the frivolity as well, and believe me, there was lots of frivolity. After the sudden death of our mother, we were somewhat at a loss because Mom had always been our rock. It was Brad who refused to let our gatherings stop. He insisted, cajoled, and pushed us to continue getting together in her memory, and eventually Camp Belk was born. I believe Brad was the glue that kept us connected during those years after Mom died. For that, he is my hero. Brad loved being with us, his harem, and we loved being with him. I mean, seriously, who wouldn't love being with Brad? He just made life fun and exciting. There was a childlike beauty to his spirit that always said, let's do it. And he would, and so would we. Will he be missed? Absolutely. Are we better off for having known him? You bet. But as his son Kevin pointed out so beautifully, my daddy would not want anyone to be sad over his loss. He would want us all to go play, live life, and adventure as much as possible. He would want a celebration to the life he lived and the love he has left behind for all to enjoy. Thank you, Kevin, for those words. And thank you, Brad, for sharing your life with me. You're my hero. This is from Stephanie Brown. As I write this, laying next to me is a magazine article entitled Happiness in Hard Times. I know the article is about our current health crisis, but the hard time for me right now is losing my dear friend Brad. I can't remember when I first met Brad, but I do remember the first time I thought that everyone should have a Brad. Brad just makes life better. And he embodied all those things we yearn for in life: adventure, happiness, and wisdom. He's the kind of man we gravitate to for his kindness, patience, and willingness. Brad's life was simple and easy and full of activity. Rarely would you catch him sitting still. He was always up to something fun, and he found his happiness in bringing friends along with him. A lively conversation on the back deck, a cold beer after a long bike ride, a lazy day on the lake, a walk with friends at Common Sport. That's what gave Brad the joy in his life, and he shared it all. Our friendship was not without crazy moments. On one Camp Belk, my brother and I decided to go to the store and ask to borrow Brad's truck. So tootling along the road, we had no idea that Brad was running and yelling behind us, "Bring back my boat!" Of course, we couldn't hear Brad, so knew nothing was out of the ordinary until I looked in the mirror, and there's a boat tailgating us. Luckily, we managed to turn the truck around and head up safely home. What an adrenaline rush for Brad and me. Glad to say we were able to laugh about that quite a bit later. If we each had 1,000 hours to talk about our adventures with Brad, I'm certain that still would not be enough time. My fortune was in being invited to join Brad, Colleen, and Airstream on some lovely, memorable road trips, and in turn, having them visit with us for 6 weeks each summer in Colorado. Bike rides and mountain hikes and beer and burgers, movies, and good food. Best of all, morning coffee walks with Brad, Bridger, and Olive will forever remain dear to me. Annual Camp Belk gatherings began after Mother's Day weekends ended, thanks to Brad and Colleen's generosity. Fredericksburg bike rides, mapped out by Brad to suit everyone, were followed by wine, and more wine around our tiny portable campfire. This usually led to gatherings at the Belk compound where bike rides were followed by wine and more wine around the real campfire. Brad did not judge, well, except for Trump, and he did not play favorites. I know because he loved all the Mason sisters equally. He'd made each of us feel special, like family. If you were sitting beside him, you got his full attention. And he didn't just hear what you said, he listened. What he didn't want to listen to, however, was fluff. Words like really and very in a sentence like, I was really pooped and very famished, drove him up the wall. So, of course, we use those words as often as we could to drive him nuts. All in all, my life with Brad has been bright and rich. I believe I am a better person for knowing Brad and am humbled to know that he chose me as his friend. Although, really, what choice did he have? He is now, and will always be special in my heart. And the last one is from Carol Mason. It's very fitting because when we were all talking about how to organize this and what to do, one of the first things Colleen said was, I want to ring the bell at sunset for Brad. Well, Carol wrote a tribute to Brad. I thought a fitting tribute to Brad would be to carry on some of the traditions that he initiated. The ringing of the bell at sunset was one of these, and sadly it was rung at the sunset of his life. A life full of wonder and richness cut short. What a guy, what a friend, what a father, and a husband. How lucky we were all to be in his circle of influence and love. So I will carry on, hiking, swimming, camping, drinking, laughing, singing, and celebrating life as he showed us all how to do. I ring the bell for you, Brad, with love. And so, to end this, we will ring the bell at sunset whenever, I think
When
it's
is it?
going to be about 8:37.
I'm ready to see the view and all this. It's good.
10 minutes, 18 minutes. So, I think we can stretch our legs, and in a few minutes, in 18 minutes, we will gather back and ring the bell for Brad. Yeah.
So you want to say to whoever's watching that we'll leave the stream running? Do you want to leave the stream running?
Yes, and we will leave the live stream running, and we'll try to aim it toward the bell, so we gather back in about 10 minutes.
So I took Brad sailing offshore on a race.
Yeah, I remember.
So you can still see it.
We started the race very literally.
Sunset's about 15 minutes, so we're just
As the day
leave that.
into the evening and the night, the wind started picking up and picking up and picking up.
We missed.
I had my son with me also, TJ, and I think Kevin. Were you with us when on the
Moon race?
shadow race? He was, all right. Yeah.
I had to work.
Come here, son.
Oh, that's good.
See if we can remember this correctly. So we were on the Harvest Moon race, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm at the helm, and TJ pops up and says, "Hey, Dad, why is there water on the floor down here?" You remember that?
Yeah.
Why is there water on the floor down here? You know? But you know, the captain doesn't lose his cool. And I gave the helm to Brad, and I go down and I look. And sure enough, man, there's like this much water on the floor splashing around. Oh man, we got a leak somewhere in the middle of the Gulf. I mean, we were 35 miles from shore. So I'm going, okay, fine. So we started looking for leaks. Brad goes forward, and he says, somebody didn't dog down the 2 forward hatches. Every time we hit a wave, man, it would just pour. So we dogged down the hatches. About an hour and a half later, the bilge pump was working overtime.
There's 2 bills. The first one crapped out. My dad, right before the trip, he went and bought a $50 bilge pump from the Academy.
Yep.
And he plugged in there, it's like, just in case.
Yeah.
And it was that $50 bilge pump that kept that boat afloat.
That's right. That's right.
I know this is from all those shirts.
Did you really?
I got mine still, and I'm gonna wear it.
Let's go.
That's where I'm going.
Of getting distracted.
You are.
Reminds me of the old Easter. A little more sad, a little less like why.
Robin Baker, the cabinet maker.
He did.
You can't talk. Yeah. No, he didn't.
It's kind of hard to pass.
I'm in New York. We're in we're in we're about 50 miles south of New Baltimore. We're going to turn around and go back down the Hudson River, go to Cape May, New Jersey, through Delaware Bay, and then we'll hang out at Chesapeake for about a month. After hurricane September. And then we'll check out reservation, marathon sport, or September, January, February. So we'll probably hang out at marathon for a couple of weeks, and so I come out here for some reason. And then watch it, hang out there.
No, I just always wondered how we're going to do this.
And we might also do that when we're behind.
How are we going to do this?
Yellow carries ahead.
He would have loved it. That's really interesting. It's just Brad's day.
Such a great story.
I swear. Just I didn't get
Mark doesn't do things like that.
Everything
Your daughter's a brother, but she's a winner. She's a, I read her little speech. She broke down the speech. You don't need to.
I would just stay in the office.
Later, lady.
I think I do. I didn't.
I know, but then I teased him, but then everyone liked it already. So
You can hear me okay?
thank you. I think from now on, it's just
That's okay.
Hello, so George Marlowe.
You know, well, do the freezer and then, you know, I put Ogan National Summer, some different yeah, that's the thing, when I first made that, I was still eating corn. It goes great with the corn. It doesn't go as well with anything else, but I just don't. I'm gonna go deliver this.
Okay.
Last couple of weeks, I like to spend a lot of time.
I'll ring it, and y'all need to stand back. It's really loud. Yeah.
I think it's travel costs. We just got retired.
Oh, real cold. Very, very good. Very good.
You guys, it's sunset.
30 minutes with the coach.
Yep. Yeah, join me.
And you want the other
Grief.
Grief is good. I mean, it's not. There's so much you can be said. No, that is. So much. He's gone.
I was actually planning on it.
But I understand it.
You gotta get back to the house.
Yeah, usually.
And part of it is that I retired last June. And then we just, December,
really
and all of a sudden,
oh,
we're
yeah, right.
and then COVID comes along, and Brad dies, and I didn't spend enough time here.
Well, I'm so glad you were here. Oh my God, I was so calling so much. And I know Brad is so grateful for being here.
Gratified that he would ask me that.
Maybe Rob died, maybe like yeah. I think maybe she worked for the Attorney General's office.
My kids saw a lot more of it in the past decade than I did.
But kind of the same thing. He buys houses. Crosses over. And when you're working,
Yeah, we try.
yeah.
But every summer he'd run off to Colorado.
Are they a little bit, have a little brain in them?
I don't blame him.
Just ever so little, but okay, that's all I
Our air
have to
conditioner's
worry
good
about.
on that. All good. Well, I got it now. I said that we'll just call it out. Throws over, I think. Yeah, and we've been running it a whole lot, and it just throws over.
Thank you for the food.
Well, I want to ring a bell. Maybe all ought to ring a bell.
Are you gonna ring it?
Yeah, I'm gonna ring it.
Is it ready?
Good.
No, not yet.
No, we
But
have.
It's close, Kenny.
They'll let you ring it.
Well,
No, we have 6 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that sounds good.
I think you should just ring it.
Oh, just once.
No, I don't.
And you've met Robin,
You should
right?
ring it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see. Everybody ring the bell.
If they want to.
It's really loud.
Let the neighbors know.
This is from Glenn and Terry. This bell's from Glenn and Terry. Glenn gave this gift to us. Says you can borrow it. And on the back of here it says this is belonging to Glenn. And we have returned both.
All right, 6 minutes. 6 minutes till sunset.
And then Terry, Colorado.
6 minutes till sunset. Where do we want to face the camera?
Honey, I'm just gonna pivot it.
My only concern is facing.
It should be all right.
And the dark.
Honey, tell me when.
Stop. Turn a little more. Go back. A little more. Stop. That's perfect.
Is that good?
Can you bolt it down one more place?
Backwards or forward?
Other side.
It's both. It's tacked on both places.
In all 4 places?
No, just 3.
Well, then all 4 then. This is pretty rocky. That's fine. That's good. Perfect. The bell's right top center, and so we got the view, and we can ding it, and we can do whatever we want. Okay. Do we want the mic?
I'm just gonna turn the mic a little bit towards us.
Actually, yeah, just pull it this way.
I was just gonna turn it.
Just move the whole table.
I just turned the mic.
Can you please move it closer so that whoever's standing here will be heard? I'll do it. I'll do it.
Oh, yeah.
Stop. Stop.
You don't need to worry about it.
Just
All right, perfect.
This is so loud. This is so loud, Dylan.
No, it's
Well,
are you gonna toast? I was gonna say.
it's for somebody to speak if they want to say anything.
Hey, your temper check on now? Yes. I was taking out of it.
So we're not going to say anything? Okay, so you don't need to turn the sound
No, that was literally my temper check.
No, that's literally my token.
But it's really loud.
You want the sound on?
Here, let me
If
spit
you
it.
can put it,
Yeah, we're
yeah,
kind
I
of
think
good.
we
You're good.
can sound, can you turn the sound way down?
Yes. Can you turn
Way down.
Hold this.
Yeah, is
No,
that,
that's her.
that was mine. I said,
The only child of his that I know of was
I think I'll be doubting myself, but I'm 99.99% sure that's the
back when I was
Okay, I hope that works. It's way down.
and I remember Jim Hightower saying,
It is.
So we can, it's like, so okay, 3 minutes, you guys, we're gonna ring the bell.
because Gary did.
I'll stand there.
Okay. That's perfect. And stand
Oh, ready?
About 2 minutes.
You want it muted or do you?
What time is it? How much?
It's at 36, and right now it's 34.
Tom, you want to ring the bell, dude? Come on. It's for your
You
brother.
want to do it, Tom?
Come on, it's for your brother, Tom.
Okay, so do we want to unmute the mic?
Yep.
Okay.
Time.
And relax.
So you can say to the kid, if you want to say this is a salute to Brad Belk. Ringing the bell in honor of Brad Belk.
Well, hold on. Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
One day I'll listen to you.
Hey guys, we're ringing the bell. Sunset.
They don't always have a call show. Do it every Sunday.
Sunset's in 1 minute.
Jenna, thanks for doing that. That's
I'm glad I could. Glad it worked.
It's nice to have somebody else take care of that.
Y'all ready? So say whatever you wish, and then whenever you're done, you can
It's
sing.
sunset, guys. Here it comes.
Sunset, this is for Brad.
One day all this will be yours, Simba.
More.
You dig it again?
More.
What did he say?
Let him hear it, Tom.
Woo!
That's our 4th of July fireworks right there.
Oh, we got some other ones. Does anybody want to say thank you to the camera?
Thank you, camera.
Thanks, camera, for doing a great
Thank you all
job.
for paying attention. We love you all.
Awesome.
On the stand.
It's like reverse Easter.